Hello, thank you for joining us. This is Brave New History. We're here with Simeon Todoruk. Thank you so much. And we'll be talking about,
Thank you.
yep, absolutely. Very interesting stuff based off of Russell Gamerkin's work. And we'll be talking about a very late dating for the Hebrew Bible and talk about, is it Maccabean authorship? And as Russell Gamirkin points out, that there's a lot of parallels with Platonism, and which is a later idea. So that might give some reason to believe in later dating for it. So thank you so much, Simeon. Have I summed that up pretty accurately?
Yeah, you're pronouncing it good.
Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, what leads us
uh,
to believe in a later dating for the Hebrew Bible?
well, I I read a lot of Russell Grimmerkin books and a few others on biblical minimalism. But one thing that always stuck in my head that just didn't seem right was the Septuagint tradition is based on a letter that's known to be forged. So, and the Deuteronomist reforms mentioned in the book that a lot of people place Josiah. It seemed historical in the time of the Maccabean and that time. So I examined all the information of the second century BCE. Seemed to me that the dating of the books line up a lot better, especially since when Jonathan Maccabee took he took it away from the Zadok priest, and that Zadok priest, we're not sure what his name was. It might have been Jason, it might not have been. We don't know, but he was the last Zadok priest, and he, according to Quimran, fled, became the first teacher of righteousness. So what I see for the Hebrew Bible is you have on one hand the what's often called the priestly source, coming out of that last Zadok priest, and you have the Deuteronomists on the other hand, who are obviously the Hasmoneans. In fact, will take every single inscription and off his coins, and also destroy the Samaritan temple in the process, and carry out his own Deuteronomic reforms. So I see the priestly source and the Deuteronomic source coming out of the mid-second century. And I see the so-called J and E source as just being a combination, trying to join them together, even far down into the first century, possibly.
Yeah, and so how would you respond if a lot of these concepts like the Leviathan, um, they seem late, right? They seem like, do most people see it as like a holdover from the Canaanites, or like the early people from the Levant?
Yeah, well, you got to Zadok just come out of the second century. They've been around at least since the monarchy period. In fact, it's not like everybody went to Babylon. Not like everybody that came back from Babylon was even from Judea in the first. And so they kept a lot of these ancient Canaanite traditions, Leviathan, Lotan, and the defeat where Baal, basically the Baal cycle. We have the defeat of Lotan, and then later it will become Yahweh. Um, and so these concepts do make it into the Hebrew Bible in several places, mainly in older material than Genesis through Kings. You're looking in Job and Psalms and material like that that could be predate a lot of Genesis to Kings.
Gotcha. So, like Job, would you say that's, quite early, like in the traditional dating, and then these other books are tacked onto it? Or would you say the whole shebang is dated late?
Well, I would say the Book of Job has several sections, but the middle section, chapter 3 to 31, is, it's like a Platonic dialogue. We have four guys in a speech in the style of Plato, yet it clearly has Zoroastrian theology in it. I mean, there's the resurrection of the dead in Job 14, there's Leviathan, you mentioned. So I think that's third century. You're looking right after the Hellenistic takeover, and yeah, so a lot like Proverbs, Job, Ecclesiastes, a lot of that material, I think, before Genesis to Kings is compiled.
Gotcha. And so what? So let's see if we can get it. So the latest it would be dated is the third century BCE. We're thinking, and that's because of the
Well,
Platonic style of the just like Russell Gamerkin said that we're seeing strong parallels with the writing of Plato, right? And that would lead us to believe,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so a lot of the covenant code in Exodus 21 to 23, it does have some parallels with law code of Hammurabi. That's true, but a lot of it lines up with Plato's laws, and a lot of the Deuteronomist laws line up with Plato's laws. One thing I will say is the covenant code and other items that Russell Gmerkin has pointed out are borrowed from Babylonian sources, such as the creation, flood, etc., from Berosus. The reason a lot of these, I think, are in there, the Babylonian sources, just a lot of the people returned from exile from Babylon. It's that they're being ruled by the Seleucids before this time. The Seleucids ruled all the way from what used to be Persia, all of Babylon, all the way into Syria, and then down into and until the Maccabees kicked them out. So they have a long influence in the early second century before you even get to the Maccabees.
gotcha. And so what was the purpose for the Maccabees writing it? And did they mean it to, I mean, they meant it to be ancient or seem ancient, right? That before then it was just oral tradition. They make it up whole cloth.
Well, I actually have a theory on that. The Bible quotes in Joshua and Second Samuel make reference to a book called the Book of Jazer. Now, the book I just we don't have that book, but I have speculated. If you look at the history just before the Maccabean revolt, when the Seleucids first took over, it was under Antiochus III. And at that time, he was very good friends with Simon the Just, the Jazer. And so I suspect that there was a history written probably for taking money for another already written histories, like Russell Gmerkin had pointed out, that Manifo had a colonization story. And so I think the Book of Jazer was a very early second century from the Seleucids. And then when the split in the priesthood takes over, you have the Zadok priests run away, and now the Maccabees have come in, and they're not Zadok priests. They have to legitimize their priesthood. They have to, and their priest, if you look at what the traditions are, the Maccabees did, they were very violent towards their own people. If they, there's the story of Maccabees, the father of the Maccabees, that actually killed one of the Jews for worshiping an idol, and it's obvious that they're trying to legitimize their own priesthood. And I think Deuteronomy, the Deuteronomist history, as well as a lot of the books of the prophets being written for their ideology, for their political and religious agenda.
Yeah. And I mean, what was it? I'm just, did they intend it to look more ancient than it was? Like, or was there deception on their part? Or like, I don't know, I'm thinking like what would for like what
Yeah.
about the text? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, well, in this, I have to quickly go into what Russell American says.
Sure.
There was about 315 BCE, there was a Egyptian historian. He he wrote a Egyptian colonization story. He claimed that Egypt colonized the whole world, and so people go to Greece, people go to Babylon. But the one he said went to Judah was a man named Moses. It's an Egyptian royal name. It means to be God. Moses goes to Jerusalem. He leads a bunch of people to colonize Jerusalem, Judea, and he built a temple and gives them laws. That's what Hecataeus is. About 40 years later, Manetho will write another Egyptian history, and in the process of writing this and using Hecataeus, he basically will fuse the story of the Judean colonization with the Hyksos expulsion, and now it becomes an Exodus story of the Hyksos, who Manetho really didn't like. What that means is that everyone writing after that time, including the Jews, because Manetho didn't give them a very good reputation, basically respond to this and make their books look more ancient. And this also goes in line, obviously, with what Plato said. If you can say that your laws were given in ancient times and that they're divine, then the people, and you have a creating what Plato considers a ideal society.
Gotcha. So it's almost like Roman provenance, but like Platonic provenance, that he says just make it up, say it's ancient, and the people will accept it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other issue is that while the Hasmoneans and Maccabees are doing this, we have the Qumran community writing other literature. They're probably responding to a lot of this material. We have the Book of Job, for instance, just trashes the Book of Daniel. It trashes Jeremiah. It's totally written against the books that are coming out of the other side. We've got Enoch, First Enoch. We have other issues with Qumran. So I think that you have two separate communities writing, and then later there are going to be people that are going to bring them together in the first century. We know people like Alexander Jannaeus and Alexandria and others will try and get the community back together in the first century to some degree. They never do come back together completely, but I think you're finding the finalization of work in the first century BCE, somewhere around there.
Gotcha. And what's the disagreement about with the authors of Daniel and authors of Job?
The disagreement between the books,
Like,
or the disagreement
so,
between the Hasmoneans and the Qumran?
I guess either. Like, so you're saying that
Okay.
Job that Job is after Daniel, or Job was written after Daniel?
No, I was in the third, at least the core of it, the middle of it was from the third century, probably before all this material, Job, and then of course Job gets expanded on. Now, you mentioned when you mentioned Job, it's interesting that the speeches of Job with Yahweh in at the end of the book in chapter 37, 1, 38 to 41. We have Yahweh say, "What will do when I founded the earth when the morning burst," and all this sort of Leviathan, Behemoth. A lot of that is pulled from earlier things, but it uses the same language almost. The first Enoch, we got the morning stars, we got all these other astrotheology. There's a lot of astrology that ending. So I think that comes out of Qumran. I think these books are all being written. A lot of them in
Gotcha. I think
and only interest is through kings.
okay, yeah, we froze there.
I lost you for a second. We're back again.
Oh yeah, yeah, you froze on my end
Okay.
as well. But so
Okay.
yeah, so what were you saying?
Okay, I don't know exactly where it froze, but I was saying that it is interesting that the book came together, Genesis, you've got the Torah plus the Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, that's 9 books that start with the creation down to the Babylonian exile. I don't think that's a coincidence that the books are laid out that way, because Herodotus also wrote 9 books history. And if you look at where Herodotus starts his history, it's about the same time period at the middle of the Babylonian exile. It's almost like they're saying, "Hey, you guys, this, you should read this because it's the prequel."
Yeah, gotcha. And so they're trying to one up each other a little bit, right? This is more ancient.
Yeah, now I'm not saying there aren't ancient writings in the Bible. There's obviously some to go back early. There's obviously, even in the Genesis to Kings, we have the Song of Deborah, the Song of the Sea, we have other things back earlier. But basically, the the one argument I've heard against this is linguistic. People will try and say the Hebrew language they has different dating on it, but I find that whenever you ask that question, you ask them, what are you basing that on? What other Hebrew literature are you basing it on? And they're going to say things like, well, Hosea uses this language, and uses this language, and Daniel uses this language. Well, that's kind of circular reasoning, because we have different communities writing a lot of these books, and I think that they are written in a way to evolve over time in the timelines. There are Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran that are backdated, at least in the Hebrew style. And I don't have any doubt that, for instance, Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah are later in Hebrew. It's just that I think you're looking at first century CE for those books. Philo doesn't, of Alexandria doesn't even.
Oh, looks like we froze again. Philo doesn't what?
He doesn't know the books of Chronicles and Ezra and Nehemiah. And you would
Gotcha.
think he would probably quote them, but he doesn't really quote those books. And yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And then,
And
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, you wonder, this isn't, I mean, this is purely Gamerkin that came up with this originally. And you wonder why it's not taken seriously broader scholarship.
It's not really Gomorkin that came up with this, actually. Well, he the idea recently, and I think the book on Berosis was in 2006, and then he come out with a couple since then. But actually, there were some that were thinking along these grounds in the 19th century, were thinking along these lines. European scholarship had always been somewhat placing the books a bit later. But I think the one in at least in the United States, I know it's Thomas L. Thompson that really opened this up in the 90s. And at the time that he did that, I think he was, everyone sort of liked him. But since that time, with Russell Gomurkin and, I forget what the guy who wrote a book called Argonauts in the Desert, there's several biblical minimalists that have come up and said, if you look at the material in the Hebrew Bible, it's very obviously a lot of it is drawing on Greek stories, Greek, just even the stories that they say such as Genesis chapter 1. Obviously, there is a Babylonian component to that. It's also a massive parallel with Plato's Timaeus. So there's a lot of scholars now that are sort of thinking about it, and I think especially in Europe, the trend is moving towards at least the Hellenistic period.
Gotcha. All right, and so here I know you have to be headed out here soon, but before we go, you started a YouTube channel. Do you want to plug that?
Well, yeah, I started a YouTube channel. Yeah, I started. So I started the YouTube channel recently. If the foundation be shaken, how the Bible was made, but I haven't even read the stuff we're talking about. So I guess it'll be interesting when I get there. But I'm doing it logically, so we'll see how it goes. I just want to get my ideas out, and then I can put them down more on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're working on something for Dr. Price in the Journal of Higher Criticism, yeah?
Yes, well, I was on his Facebook group, the Bible Geek listeners, and I always I put a lot of my theories out there to see if anybody else has any ideas or to see if it's totally crazy or not. But when I put out something along the lines of the second and first century dating for a lot of the Hebrew Bible, Dr. Price said, "Hey, could you expand this?" Post and make it into an article. So I said, okay, sure. So I sent him back in May a paper, I believe, called Genesis to Kings in the 100 to 15 BCE. But I mean, even since then, I've had a few ideas that aren't in that. So that's why I'm on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, very good. All right. So here, before we get going, do you have any final thoughts? I know that it's a little bit of a rushed interview, but any final thoughts you wanted to touch on?
One thing I would say is when it comes to dating the Bible, I'm not trying to for me, I'm not trying to discredit the Bible or any of that. I'm not gonna talk too aggressively. I'm just looking at the text themselves, what a person believes about the text and how that relates to their lives. That's up to them, and I'm perfectly respect that position. So I'm not here to trash the Bible, promote atheism, or any of that. I'm just looking at the text themselves and looking at parallels, and I think it makes the Bible come more alive.
Yeah, no, that's kind of my thoughts as well. That it's so much more fun if you look at it from a higher critical point of view, where I mean, it's easy to step on toes, you know, when we're talking about religion, but I don't know, when you look at it and it's kind of like, well, I mean, some of these ideas, you know, maybe they're a little bit out there, but they're so fun that you think, yeah, what if that is the case?
Exactly. And yeah, I enjoy your channel as well. You bring on a lot of people that have some really interesting ideas. Even if we don't agree with them, it's always good to listen to everybody's opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, especially Dr. Price, who like we're just connecting things that like I've never heard before, right? And you know, and they seem they seem out there, but boy, if that's not an interesting story, right? And just like you see all the connections, and you're just thinking, what if they are connected in reality, right? So I think it's fun. I think of it as a little like if you're into true crime, and just think of like what's going on, right? Like how did it actually go down, right? Solving the mystery.
Well, that's what it is. It's basically a big mystery because we don't have access to history without a time machine yet. And so we have to basically go by the information we do have and the text that we do have. And this applies to New Testament criticism just as much as it applies to the Hebrew Bible or any document from the past.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, here we'll let you go here. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm sure
Oh, thanks for
everybody's going to
having me.
enjoy your. Yep, and everybody's going to enjoy your channel if the foundations be shaken. And yeah, wonderful. All right, well, thank you so much. And yeah, everybody, thank you for watching,
Oh,
and have a great day.
oh, oh, thank you.